The clock on the cracked kitchen wall blinked 7:32 a.m. Ethan Cole wiped his hands on his faded trousers and glanced once more at the note pinned above the sink. "Believe in yourself, son. Love, Mom." It was written years ago, in his mother's slanted handwriting, back when hope was easier to hold. Now, hope felt like the rain outside. Relentless, cold, but still falling. He checked his watch again, panic creeping in. The bus had broken down 2 stops back, and walking was his only option. His resume, the single printed copy he could afford, was already damp from the drizzle, pressed carefully inside a plastic folder he'd used since college. Today was supposed to be his turning point. Hawthorne Industries. The company everyone in the city wanted to work for. A salary that could finally pull his mother out of debt, fix the leaky roof, and maybe, just maybe, make her smile without worry again. But the city didn't care about dreams. Cars hissed by in sheets of water. People rushed past, umbrellas bobbing like a sea of black petals. Ethan weaved through the crowd, breath fogging in the chill. He whispered his interview answers under his breath, over and over, like a prayer he refused to forget. Then it happened. A sharp, metallic screech tore through the noise, followed by a heavy thud and a gasp that froze him mid-step. Up ahead, a man's wheelchair had tipped over near the curb. Papers scattered. The man, elderly and struggling, lay half in the road, half on the sidewalk, while cars swerved angrily around him. For a heartbeat, Ethan stood frozen. The crosswalk light flashed red. His watch read 8:58 a.m. The interview was at 9. If I run now, I can still make it. He took 1 step forward, then heard the man groan, his trembling hands trying and failing to lift the chair. Something in Ethan's chest twisted. He sprinted back. Rain hammered his back as he knelt beside the man. "Sir, don't move. I've got you." The man's face was pale, water streaming down his cheeks, his glasses cracked. Together, Ethan lifted him upright, steadying the wheelchair and shielding him from the downpour with his own body. The man winced, but managed a faint, grateful smile. "Thank you, son," he rasped. "Most people just kept walking." Ethan shook his head, panting. "You shouldn't be out here alone. Are you hurt?" The man waved him off. "Only my pride. You're kind. What's your name?" "Ethan," he said, glancing at his watch again. 9:12 a.m. The interview was already gone. The man noticed the ruined folder under Ethan's arm. "You've somewhere important to be," he murmured. Ethan forced a weak laugh. "Yeah, had actually." The man's eyes softened. "I'm sorry for that." "It's all right," Ethan said quietly, helping him to a nearby bench. "Some things can wait. People can't." When Ethan finally turned toward Hawthorne Industries, the glass tower loomed just a block away, shimmering through the rain like a promise he'd come too late to claim. His shoes squelched with each step. The security guard at the entrance barely looked up as Ethan approached, dripping and shivering. "Interview's over," the guard said flatly. "They called in the next candidate." Ethan pressed his ruined resume against his chest and nodded. "Yeah, I figured." He stood there for a moment, watching through the glass as other hopefuls in crisp suits shook hands, their laughter muffled by the thick pain separating their world from his. He tried to smile, but it broke halfway. Behind him, the city kept moving, horns blaring, rain falling, life continuing as if his dream hadn't just slipped through his fingers. He didn't know it yet, but the man he had stopped for, the stranger in the wheelchair, was Charles Hawthorne, founder of the very company whose doors had just closed on him, and this failure would become the beginning of something far greater than the job he lost. The rain had finally stopped by the time Ethan reached home, but the storm hadn't left him. It stayed in his chest, heavy, restless, beating against his ribs like regret trying to escape. He pushed open the door to his small apartment. The air smelled faintly of wet clothes and instant noodles. His mother's cough echoed from the next room, soft, but enough to twist his heart tighter. "Ethan," her voice floated out, gentle but tired. "How did it go, dear?" He froze in the doorway, shoes dripping on the cracked tiles. For a moment, he thought about lying, saying the interview went fine, that they'd call him back. But his reflection in the mirror stopped him. He looked like what he felt, a man who had tried and failed again. It was okay, Mom, he said quietly, forcing a smile she couldn't see. Just need to wait for their response. She hummed softly, satisfied for now, and he exhaled. He walked to his room, shut the door, and leaned his forehead against it, the only barrier between his mother's faith and his disappointment. "Man, you look like a drowned puppy." Ethan turned. Riley sat on the edge of his bed, scrolling through his phone. His best friend since college, full of sarcasm and street wisdom. "You didn't even call me after the interview," Riley said, raising a brow. "Don't tell me you bombed it again." Ethan dropped his wet folder onto the table. "Didn't even get to the interview." Riley blinked. "You're kidding." He shook his head. "Someone needed help on the road. Old man in a wheelchair. Couldn't just leave him there." Riley scoffed. "Ethan, bro, you've got a heart made of gold and the luck of a flat tire. You always pick the noble road, and it always leads straight into a ditch." Ethan smiled faintly, sitting beside him. "Maybe. But if I'd walked past him, I'd have hated myself more than I hate losing a job." Riley sighed, tossing his phone aside. "You and your moral compass. One day it's going to cost you more than just a job." "Maybe," Ethan murmured, staring out the window. The city glowed faintly in the distance, indifferent and alive. "But some things are worth more than money." His phone buzzed. He hesitated, unlocking it with slow fingers. Subject: Hawthorne Industries interview. He already knew what it meant before opening it. "We appreciate your time and interest, but we have decided to move forward with other candidates." The words blurred, heavy and cold. He locked the phone, set it face down, and lay on the bed. The rain started again, tapping gently on the roof like a lullaby for the defeated. As sleep pulled him under, a strange peace settled in. He had lost the opportunity, but not himself. Morning came pale and grey. His phone buzzed again. A different number, unfamiliar. "Mr. Ethan Cole?" a calm, commanding voice said when he answered. "This is Hawthorne Industries. You're requested at our headquarters tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Ethan sat up, heart pounding. "Wait, what? I thought—" "Just be there," the voice replied. Then the line went dead. Ethan stared at the phone, wide-eyed. The storm inside him had just changed direction. Ethan stood in front of the mirrored elevator doors, his reflection staring back at him, nervous, underdressed, and unsure why he was even there. He clutched the folded email confirmation in his hand, still half convinced it was some elaborate mistake. "You're requested at our headquarters tomorrow morning at 9. No sender's name, no explanation. Just those words. Now, he was back in the same building that had rejected him, but this time, instead of waiting in a crowded lobby with anxious candidates, a woman in a sharp black suit had greeted him the moment he arrived. "Mr. Cole, this way, please. Mr. Hawthorne is expecting you." Mr. Hawthorne. The name alone sent a chill down his spine. The founder of Hawthorne Industries, a billionaire, a legend. The elevator chimed softly. The doors slid open to reveal the top floor, a world Ethan had only seen in magazines. Polished marble floors, glass walls overlooking the skyline, a single grand oak desk near the window, and behind it, the man himself. Charles Hawthorne. He looked different without the rain. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, his silver hair neatly combed, a calm strength in his posture. The same wheelchair rested beside the desk, but it seemed more like a throne now than a burden. Ethan froze at the door, realization dawning like lightning. "You?" he breathed. Charles smiled faintly, his eyes warm with recognition. "I was wondering if you'd remember me." Ethan took a hesitant step forward. "You're the man from the street." "I am," Charles said. "And you're the young man who gave up his future to help a stranger." Ethan shook his head quickly. "No, sir. I just did what anyone should do." Charles chuckled softly. "That's where you're wrong, Mr. Cole. Most people didn't. You did." Silence hung for a beat, the kind that hums with unspoken gratitude. "You missed your interview because of me," Charles continued, wheeling closer. "But that told me more about your character than any resume ever could." Ethan's breath caught. You know about the interview." "I own the company," Charles said simply. "And I believe men like you don't belong in waiting rooms. They belong in decisions." For a moment, Ethan thought he was about to offer him the job. His pulse quickened. He straightened, rehearsed gratitude forming in his head. But then Charles's next words shattered the script entirely. "I don't want to hire you, son." Ethan blinked. I'm sorry." Charles smiled, eyes glinting with something between amusement and intention. "I want you to meet my daughter." The room went still. Ethan stared, unsure if he'd heard right. "Your daughter?" "Yes," Charles said, handing him a white envelope with embossed gold lettering. "Dinner, tomorrow evening, my home. Consider it a personal invitation." Ethan accepted it slowly, confusion etched across his face. "Is this a test?" Charles only smiled again. "Maybe. Or maybe it's fate reminding you that kindness never goes unnoticed." When Ethan walked out of the office moments later, the city's noise felt distant, his mind spinning faster than his steps. In his pocket lay the invitation, heavy as destiny itself. He didn't know whether to laugh, run, or believe. The Hawthorne mansion wasn't a home. It was a monument. Ethan stood at the towering iron gates, invitation trembling in his hand as security guards checked his name against a sleek tablet. Beyond the gates stretched a long driveway lined with trimmed hedges and fountains lit like liquid gold. The mansion itself loomed ahead, all marble and glass. Beautiful, but cold. He swallowed hard, adjusted his second-hand blazer, and followed a butler inside. Every surface gleamed. Paintings older than his entire neighborhood stared down from the walls. Chandeliers glittered above him like captured constellations. It was a world built for royalty, and he felt like an intruder who had taken a wrong turn. "Mr. Ethan Cole," the butler announced grandly. Charles Hawthorne turned from the fireplace, his face breaking into a welcoming smile. "Ethan, you came." Ethan nodded, trying to sound composed. "Would have been rude not to, sir." Charles laughed warmly. "Good man. Sit, please." Before Ethan could respond, another voice, smooth, cool, and edged with disbelief, floated into the room. "Father, I hope this isn't another one of your charity projects." Ethan turned. Standing at the top of the staircase was Sophia Hawthorne, tall, graceful, and striking in a white silk dress. Her expression was unreadable, her tone clipped and practiced. She descended the stairs slowly, each step echoing in the silence like judgment. When her gaze landed on Ethan, it swept over his worn shoes, his simple tie, his nervous posture. Her lips curved faintly, not in a smile, but in quiet mockery. "So this is the hero?" she asked. "The man who saved you?" Charles smiled, unbothered. "The very one." Sophia crossed her arms. "He looks more like someone who'd need saving himself." Ethan stiffened but didn't look away. "I didn't save your father for a reward, Miss Hawthorne," he said calmly. or to impress anyone. Her eyes flickered, just briefly, as if she hadn't expected him to answer. Charles burst out laughing, the sound filling the cavernous room. "You see, Sophia, that's what I like about him. No fear, no flattery." Dinner was served in a grand dining room with ceilings so high Ethan could barely hear his own thoughts. Crystal glasses clinked, silverware gleamed. Sophia remained distant, her conversation polite but perfunctory. Ethan answered questions humbly, always circling back to gratitude. For life, for chances, for decency. To him, the food was exquisite. To her, the evening was unbearable. Later, as the butlers cleared the table, Ethan thanked them, genuinely. Sophia noticed, but said nothing. After he left, her voice cut through the silence of the dining room. "You can't pick my husband like a business merger, Father." Charles looked at her with calm certainty. "You need someone who sees you, not your wealth. You hide behind ice, Sophia. I want someone who will make you thaw." Sophia's jaw tightened. "You're impossible." She turned sharply and stormed upstairs, her heels clicking like a gavel of protest. Charles only smiled, leaning back in his chair. He'd seen the flicker in her eyes, the one she tried to hide when Ethan spoke. The seed was planted. The next few weeks became a blur of invitations Ethan couldn't refuse. "Just come along," Charles would say with that persuasive smile. "You'll learn how the business works." And so, Ethan found himself thrust into a world of tuxedos and champagne. A charity gala one evening, a boardroom the next, a sleek factory visit the day after. Every event shimmered with wealth, and every room whispered about the poor boy who saved the boss. Sophia, of course, was always there, icy, elegant, and perpetually irritated. At the first gala, she stood beside her father like a diamond statue, watching Ethan struggle to blend in. He looked lost among the elite, fidgeting with his borrowed suit, smiling too earnestly. Yet he didn't try to impress anyone. When the waiters tripped under the weight of silver trays, he was the first to help. When an elderly janitor dropped his cleaning rag, Ethan picked it up, knelt beside him, and said, softly, "Don't worry, sir. Happens to the best of us." Sophia saw it all, and hated that she noticed. "Father's pet project," she muttered under her breath, clutching her champagne flute. But when the janitor smiled gratefully and Ethan smiled back, something in her chest shifted, quietly, annoyingly. Over the following weeks, Charles made sure their paths kept crossing. At company briefings, Ethan would ask questions that sounded naive but revealed thoughtfulness. At community events, he'd shake hands with the staff long before greeting investors. Sophia began to see a pattern. Ethan wasn't pretending. He was simply kind. Still, she wouldn't admit it. That's when Damian Lee noticed. Charles's assistant, tall, polished, and perpetually calculating, had always seen himself as Sophia's natural match. Ethan's growing presence irritated him like a stone in his shoe. During a visit to one of Hawthorne Industries' plants, Damian leaned close to Sophia as Ethan spoke with factory workers. "Men like him," Damian murmured. "They act humble because it gets them sympathy. Once they've climbed high enough, they forget who helped them." Sophia frowned. "You think he's pretending?" Damian smiled thinly. "I've seen it before. The poor boy turned prince story never ends well." The seed of doubt slid neatly into her mind. That evening, while scrolling her phone, Sophia overheard her father's assistant mention something about Ethan's mother. Curiosity stirred, and she quietly asked one of the household staff. The news hit her harder than expected. Ethan's mother was in the hospital, and he'd sold his phone to pay for her treatment. He'd been unreachable for days, walking miles just to deliver a thank-you note to one of her father's drivers who'd helped him once. Sophia closed her laptop and stared out her window at the sprawling city lights. For the first time, she didn't see Ethan as a nuisance or a project. She saw a son trying to care for his mother, alone, quietly, without asking for anything. And for a moment, her heart, long locked behind layers of pride, flickered with something she hadn't felt in years. Empathy. While you're here, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's go on. The days that followed were quieter, but heavier. The gossip faded from the headlines, yet its echo lingered in Sophia's chest like a bruise she couldn't hide. Every time she saw Ethan's name, every time she remembered the look on his face when he walked away, guilt pricked sharper. She sat alone in her room one evening, the city's lights glittering through the rain-streaked window. Her reflection looked back. Perfect hair, perfect dress, perfectly miserable. Her father's words drifted through her mind again. Let's see who stands where when the noise fades. And beneath that, a memory she hadn't visited in years. Her mother's soft voice at bedtime whispering, "The richest heart is the one that gives, even when no one's watching." For the first time, Sophia wondered if she had become everything her mother warned against. Proud, blind, and afraid of imperfection. The thought wouldn't leave her. That night, she opened her laptop, searching Ethan's name. Not in tabloids this time, but through hospital donation records, volunteer lists, anything real. Her breath caught when she found it. Multiple anonymous payments made to St. Agnes Clinic. Small amounts, consistent, and marked with initials EC. She called the clinic. "Who are these payments for?" The nurse hesitated. "They're for various patients, struggling families, children, and an elderly woman. Cole, Margaret, stage 2 arthritis. She said her son helps her, but she doesn't know how he manages." Sophia's hand went cold. Ethan's mother. He wasn't chasing fame. He was holding his world together with both hands while everyone accused him of pretending. By morning, she couldn't sit still. She drove across town to his neighborhood, rows of narrow streets and peeling paint, puddles glistening in the gutter. Through the drizzle, she spotted him across the road, wearing a yellow construction vest, mixing cement beside a half-finished wall. He looked different, tired but peaceful. No cameras, no suits, just him. She wanted to walk up to him, to apologize, but the words tangled in her throat. What could she possibly say? That she finally believed him, now that it was too late? Instead, she watched in silence until her phone buzzed. "Gala tomorrow night," her father's voice said through the speaker, calm and steady. "Be there. It's time some truths saw the light." "Is this about Ethan?" she asked softly. A pause. Then, "The rain always brings what's buried to the surface, Sophia. You'll see." That night, thunder rolled through the city again. The same kind that fell the day Ethan saved Charles Hawthorne. And as the storm washed over the streets, it felt like fate circling back, cleansing what pride and lies had clouded. The ballroom shimmered like a sea of gold. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, catching every flash of a camera, every flicker of whispered speculation. It was Hawthorne Industries' 50th anniversary gala, the night meant to celebrate legacy, power, and prestige. But beneath the glamour, something deeper waited to surface. Damian Lee stood near the podium, his smile smooth and polished, his voice confident as he addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight we honor a company built on integrity, a value I've worked tirelessly to protect. Sometimes that means making hard choices, keeping opportunists away from the people we cherish." The audience nodded, murmurs rippling through the hall. Sophia's jaw tightened. She knew who he meant. At the far end of the stage, Charles Hawthorne watched quietly, a glass of champagne untouched in his hand. When Damien's self-congratulation hit its peak, Charles raised a hand. "That will be enough, Mr. Lee." The room stilled. Charles motioned toward the large LED screen behind him. "You've spoken of integrity, Damien. Let's show the audience what it really looks like." The lights dimmed. The screen flickered. Rain. Sirens. A wheelchair spinning across a slippery street. And then Ethan Cole, drenched, dropping his folder, running forward without hesitation. He shielded the man from traffic, pulling him to safety, shouting for help. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Charles's voice carried through the silence. "That was me. 3 months ago. The man you see risking everything in the rain. He missed his interview because of this moment. He failed by your standards, Damien, but by mine, he passed every test that mattered." Damien's confident mask cracked. "Sir, I didn't know you knew enough," Charles said evenly. "You just didn't see." 2 security guards stepped forward. The crowd parted as Damien was escorted out, his protests drowned by the hum of whispers and shame. Sophia stood frozen, her eyes on the screen, tears glimmering. She turned and saw Ethan at the back of the hall, hesitant, uncomfortable in his borrowed suit, clearly wishing he wasn't the center of attention. She pushed through the crowd. Cameras flashed as she reached him. "I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling but clear. "I saw the world through money. You saw it through kindness. And I judged you for it." Ethan looked at her, the woman who'd once mocked his shoes and doubted his worth, and his expression softened. "You don't need to apologize in front of everyone." "Yes, I do," she said, "because I hurt you in front of everyone." Applause rippled across the room, hesitant at first, then thunderous. Charles smiled from the stage, pride shining through his usually stoic face. He raised his glass. "I said I wanted a son-in-law who valued humanity more than wealth." He turned to Ethan. "I think I've found him." The hall erupted in cheers as Sophia's hand found Ethan's. He hesitated, then took it, their fingers locking as the storm outside rumbled softly. Not in anger this time, but in harmony. The rain had brought the truth, and under its echo, destiny had finally spoken. The garden of the Hawthorne estate had never looked so alive. Roses climbed the white trellis, the soft hum of violins floated through the air, and for once there were no reporters, no flashing lights, just family, friends, and quiet joy. Ethan stood beneath the archway, his suit simple, his hands trembling just slightly. He wasn't nervous about the vows. He'd already lived them. Through every storm, every misunderstanding, he had stayed true. When Sophia appeared, walking down the flower-lined path, she wasn't the ice princess the world once gossiped about. She was radiant, free, her eyes fixed only on him. The moment their gazes met, every noise faded. Charles Hawthorne sat near the front, a proud smile hidden beneath his calm demeanor. Beside him, Ethan's mother, now stronger, her face glowing with health, dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. She'd always told her son that goodness never goes unrewarded. Today proved her right. As the officiant's words faded, Sophia and Ethan exchanged simple vows. Nothing extravagant, no grand speeches, just truth. "I didn't marry a man who had everything," Sophia whispered. "I married the man who showed me what everything really means." When they kissed, the applause wasn't thunderous. It was warm, genuine. Workers from the company, janitors, drivers, assistants, all the people Ethan had once greeted with a smile, were there, cheering. It wasn't a wedding of status. It was a wedding of souls. After the ceremony, Charles stood and raised his glass. "Many chase success," he said, "but few remember why they chase it. Ethan reminded me that wealth without purpose is poverty in disguise." He placed a folder on the table beside his glass. "Today, I step down from the board. Ethan will lead our new community foundation. bridging business and compassion. And Sophia, he smiled at his daughter, will head the company's new charity arm. Together, they'll build what I never could, a legacy of both profit and purpose. Sophia reached for Ethan's hand. We'll build it our way, she said softly, with heart first. Laughter rippled through the crowd. The sky began to darken as the first drops of rain began to fall. Gentle, steady, familiar. Ethan stepped toward the window of the old mansion later that evening, watching as the rain kissed the earth. It was the same kind of rain that had once soaked him on the day everything went wrong, or so he thought. Behind him, Sophia wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever think about that day?" she murmured. He smiled faintly. "Every day, because that was the day my life started." The thunder rolled softly in the distance, almost like a blessing. He didn't get the job he applied for, the narrator's voice might have said, if life had one, but he got the life he was meant for. Because in the end, kindness always finds its way home.